Welcome back to Tactical Insight. Arsenal are 3-0 up from the first leg. And of course, there's the small matter of a trip to the Bernabeu. We know they've done extraordinary things. How much should we be fearing a turnaround? What do Arsenal have to do to make sure that they just build on that first night and absolutely secure their place in the semi-finals? We're going to discuss it all here on Tactical Insight while looking at what we did really well in the 3-0 game. And of course, I'm back here with Nick. Nick, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
And we were together at Box Park for the night. First of all, your reflections on what was... Yeah, I agree with sentiments of many. The best night the Emirates Stadium's ever seen.
Yeah, the greatest night the Emirates ever seen. Yeah, I mean, it was just amazing. You know, I think our analysis was pretty good from last week, to be fair.
I'll take that, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the emotions, and what a lot of people were saying to me is that it's not just that we won, it's that we won so convincingly. It was 3-0. Normally, when we've won 3-0 or 3-1 in the past, people say, oh, you're relying on set piece FC, you're relying on corners, whatever. But the 2 free kicks from Declan Rice, no one's even saying you're set piece FC, you just relied on free kicks, because actually they were very much played off the park. Yeah. And it's something that we'll get into in the show, is that, you know, why I feel like we should be so confident. It's not a 3-0 because we got a free kick, a corner and a penalty. It's a 3-0 where we really, really absolutely smashed them. And actually, if anything, I think Jude Bellingham said it, they were lucky to come away with a 3-0 loss. I think potentially we probably should have, but I don't want to nitpick because it was the greatest night ever at the Emirates, but we probably should have won about 5 or 6-0 in the end.
Yeah, it's crazy that a goalkeeper can concede 3 goals and probably still be Real Madrid's best player. And that's what Courtois was. He was sensational on the night. Now, everyone, we do have some match stats and stuff to go through. These have been sent in by Graham. Just to let you know that Graham misses the show massively and wants to be back as soon as possible. He is going through some stuff at home. Obviously, we're going to respect his privacy and not go into it in too much detail, but he misses the show so much to the point where he actually even sent some thoughts and research and data. Some of the stuff we're going to bring to you today is actually all put together by Graham behind the scenes. He'll be back as soon as possible, but show him your love in the comment section below. And we look forward to welcoming him back as soon as possible. But he has sent, as he always does, the match stats, the attacking stats and the defensive stats. So just to run through it, Arsenal outshot Real Madrid 12 shots to 7, 8 on target to 3. I don't know if I've seen a greater ratio of shots to shots on target. I mean, 8 out of 12, 75% of our efforts actually asking a question of Courtois in goal. And that never accounts for the Saka cross that rolls across the box and things like that. 53% of the possession for Arsenal. Obviously more passes with 1.69 XG to their 0.55. The attacking stats have us as entering their final third 51 times to Madrid's 49. I didn't even feel they done that many times, but there you go. 41 deep touches to Madrid's 18. 18 zone 14 touches to their 16. But a field tilt of 64.4% really highlights the dominance more than perhaps some of the other stats. Defensively, they made more tackles, they made more interceptions, they made significantly more clearances, and Arsenal much more intense on the press. 9.4 passes per defensive action to Madrid's 18.6. But it wasn't that surprising to us, was it, Nick, that Madrid didn't really engage us that high up the pitch? Yeah,
I mean, that makeshift back 4, that's what we spoke about quite a lot. When the starting 11 came out, we looked at Valverde in there. That's one of the things that I think will definitely change. We'll get into that. That will definitely change. And we talk about fear factor, we talk about respect and different things like that. And I said, look, this team's only human. There are 11 footballers on the pitch, same as us. And having a 39-year-old Modric, as good as his career has been, he's just not going to have the legs to deal with that type of press. And I thought that actually he's probably going to be there. He should be our pressing trigger, in my opinion. Yeah. And that's what it looked like. Yeah.
Let's go through, send it through again by Graham. Let's go through our sort of pass network. I really like this kind of stuff. It tells you, A, how much particular players were connecting, but B, the importance and obviously the size of the circle tells you kind of how involved they were in the game. Thomas Partey and Lewis Skelly right to the heart of it, which I guess you'd expect for a 3-2-5 build-up. You can kind of see the shape there. You can also see how Martinelli really tracked back to ensure that he helped because Lewis Skelly was inverting. Saka, on the other hand, I'm not saying he didn't work hard. He works incredibly hard, harder than most wingers in the world, but performing so well offensively with Jury and Timber cleaning up behind. The balance of this whole team. And I didn't love Mikel Merino up front, if I'm really honest, till the goal. But everyone pulled their weight. Even Odegaard still struggling a little bit, but wow.
Yeah, and I think, look, with Saka being that high, we know that is the battle. That's the battle that we isolated. We said, actually, if we're going to win battles anywhere, Bukayo Saka up against David Alaba, that's a good battle for us. If it's not going to be Alaba, it's going to be Garcia. That's still a great battle for Bukayo Saka regardless. Bellingham coming over to try to double up on him. couldn't really do it. There was a time where he absolutely skinned Bellingham, put a ball into the box, skinned Alaba a couple of times, put crosses into the box. And with Mikel Merino, the reality is he's not a 9, right? And it's something that I want to get into is, you look at that, what Graham sent over in the positions that Mikel Merino is picking up. That's why he's not on the end of those crosses that are coming low and hard, but he's not a between the centre-back and goalkeeper type of striker. But if we cut it back to the edge of the box, that's why we've got that midfield dominance. When out of possession, we sacrifice the striker. Saka stays up high. We completely sacrifice striker. He just comes in as another midfield body, which allows us to win that midfield battle. And Marino, to be fair, he's doing 2 jobs. Once we get back into possession, we go long Saka. He's got to get right the way up the pitch, him or Rice, to go and be that, to go and crash the box. And that's why he can get goals if we cut it back to the edge of the box rather than driving it across the penalty spot, which is more what you would want to see from a traditional striker.
His finishing has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this. We did. I can't remember, but and I've said this. Sorry for the repetition, people, because I've said it forever. Arsenal, I've said it on the Gooniverse, but I don't know if anyone is striking the ball more sweetly in this Arsenal team right now. I can't think of a shot that went wide, or a scuffed effort, or even just a missed opportunity to shoot.
Yeah.
He's really clinical.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about this before as well, that because he's not a striker, he is learning, and he's learning quite quickly. When he first went and played number 9, he would take a touch, try and set himself, and we've missed some big opportunities because of that. And I think that what he's learned is just get the shot off early. And that's what he did. It's what he did against Everton. Took a bit of a deflection, but he just got the shot away quickly. And then this one, the ball comes across the 18-yard box. There's a lot of bodies in the box at that point as well. And he just goes for the shot first time. And like you say, it's a really sweet strike. But I think a lot of that comes from the keepers. He's not giving the keeper a time to get set. He's not giving the defenders a time to get set. The ball's coming across the box, so the goalkeeper's leaning one way, he puts the shot back across the goalkeeper the other way. Really difficult for the keeper to deal with.
Passes received and carries here from Declan Rice, and really in that red zone, as you can see. I felt, and again I talked about this on a piece of analysis I did on the Gooniverse, that this was because they recognised that Lewis Skelly was dragging Rodrigo inside with him. Plus you've got Modric, Modric is a legend of the game, but if you're going power for power, Declan Rice will be even prime Modric, right? So I felt that they recognised that was something they can manipulate to get Rice basically driving into space where actually they didn't have quite the legs to cover, and they had a centre midfielder out right back in Valverde doing a job, and a youngster in Asensio. It was definitely a weak area, and that's where we put probably our most dynamic footballer. Yeah,
100%. And Rice has been that. He's been that kind of Aaron Ramsey-esque is what I compare him to. Third man runs, crash in the box late, different things like that. He had the... There were 2 or 3 occasions where Courtois pulled off amazing double saves, and one of them was from the cross, I think from Saka. Rice gets ahead to it, and potentially should have gone in. Courtois makes a brilliant save, then Martinelli on the follow-up, Courtois makes another brilliant save again. But yeah, Declan Rice, obviously, and those runs, that progressive play, all of that kind of stuff, that plays into his confidence. When people are asking me about why I was so confident going into this game, I said it's some of the intangibles, right? At the beginning of the season, Declan Rice analysed himself and said, I need to add goals to my game. My game this season, if I replicate exactly what I did last season, but add 10, 15 goals to it, I'll be happy with that. And he sees that in himself. The more he crashes the box, the more he gets into the area, the more he fancies himself for goal. We've all spoken about it. You've probably seen it as well. When Ødegaard is telling him to cross the ball, he says, actually, I fancy a shot, and Saka says, go and take that shot. So just being in that space, similar to Marino, being in those more progressive spaces just gives you that confidence. And obviously he's at home. I think that makes a big deal as well.
I love Saka. I just love him saying to Rice, if you're feeling it, go for it. That's what the game's about, man. And we can talk about structures and set plays and, and chances and the percentages. And, there's probably, and I don't know this for sure, but there's probably some data out there that says you have a better chance of scoring if you cross it into the box, on a routine than if you shoot from that angle. There probably is data that says that, but sometimes it's about feeling it. And I'm so glad that Saka was the one to say to Declan, we've got a plan, let's listen to the captain, let's listen to the set piece coach, whatever, but actually just do what you're feeling in the moment. Because nights like that against Real Madrid, they're charged by the Emirates atmosphere and the fans, and this sense of, I feel like a superhero. I can do something extraordinary because those nights kind of command it. I know it might sound a bit I'm maybe going over the top. I think that's kind of what it is.
I think you're spot on. One of the reasons that we've been second last 2 seasons, we'll be second again this season most likely. You know, we're a top team. We're well respected. People know we're not a knockover job. But one of the reasons that we're looked at differently from the elite teams is difference makers. People said, actually, if the game's a 0-0 and you need someone to break the deadlock 85th minute, you think it's Vinicius, you think it's Mbappe, you know, and we said, well, we feel that we've got players that can be difference makers, but just haven't done it yet. But we feel like they can. We know Ødegaard can do it. He had a fantastic goal scoring season the season before last. People look at Saka and say, okay, Saka's probably the main difference maker, but outside of him, we're not looking at Marino to be that difference maker, although he has done it this season. We're not looking at Rice to do that. We're not looking at Partey to do that, although he does a annual screamer, and we were hoping for that. And it was Declan Rice this time. And you know, we don't have difference makers until we have difference makers, right? You know, Mbappe, for all of his talent, you know, if he doesn't have that World Cup final goal and those different things, that's what makes you that player. And we just kind of hoped more than data and statistics, hoped that somebody would step up and make that moment happen. And that's what Declan Rice did. And Saka in winning the free kicks in the first place.
Arsenal's shape and Arsenal's defensive discipline, which we'll analyse in a second, led to this. Real Madrid's Champions League stats being so far down on their average. And it's important to know that these averages here are before they played Arsenal. So really trying to hammer the point here that this wasn't a case of they're skewed and brought down by what they did against Arsenal. This is what they were doing before. Obviously, they didn't score, but they averaged 2.3 per game in the Champions League this season. Their XG, they averaged about 2.2. It was down to 0.5. Slightly different really to the one that Graham sent through, but very similar. Their 53% possession was down to 47%. Their shot creating actions was down massively. So were their touches in the attacking third. They averaged normally about 82 touches in the attacking third more than they did against Arsenal in that game. Shows you how dominant we were. And one of the things that I really believe is that our out of possession shape is a massive part of this. And when Arsenal go to press, and I'm just kind of moving Arsenal players into a semi sort of pressing shape, not even so much a pressing shape, just like a defensive block, because I think we do this on the press and even just in a block. Arsenal's ability to move, apologies everyone, I just kind of move everyone up the pitch, but Arsenal's ability to basically constantly alternate between who's doing what. So if the ball is here with Valverde, Martinelli will come across. Rice might then come across to Modric, Partey might come across, but there's every chance, honestly, that Marino slots in there. And Ødegaard comes across. Because then when that ball's rolled to a centre, the momentum's with Martinelli, so he might just follow across. And then they move again. Everyone is constantly rotating position. Like it's just like, I think for a spell of a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, Saliba was at left back with Lewis Kelly at centre back in the first half, because they just clear a set piece and there's just this, we know what we're doing. And it happens, and sometimes it happens even deeper in the block. So if we get all the players back, again, apologies everyone, just have to be patient with me for a second. There's every chance that the ball here is with Rodrigo, and Martinelli might give a shout to Lewis Kelly, saying, don't worry, I'll go across. So fair play, they're all working hard. And then Valverde makes this run, and it could be Rice that goes with him. Honestly, it could be. And Marino will recognise that, so he'll just slot in. Or it might be, the run's made by Valverde, Lewis Kelly goes, Rice will just slot in, or Kivior might come across, and Partey will slot in. We always talk about rotation of positions and fluidity from an attacking perspective. I'm sure other clubs in the world do it defensively. I'm sure they do. I'm sure covering each other's man is not a new concept in football. But the way Arsenal do it, highlighted by Sander Berge post Fulham, is I've never seen Arsenal in my life have this kind of defensive structure, organisation and fluidity. I think it's exceptionally coached.
100%. And this is with some key players out. This is without a Gabriel. This is without, Jurriën Timber's locking down right back spot, but somebody who's very experienced in Ben White and is one of Arteta's kind of main, somebody that Arteta relies on quite a lot. This is without those notable players, but the understanding that they have, the coaching that they have to do that job is, I think is top tier.
I totally agree. And what I'm just doing here is I'm just moving the players right up the pitch to show that even on the press, I'm just sort of getting Madrid in a rough shape, something like this. Even on the press, right, sometimes they might move the ball around. Marino's come across, the ball goes to Asensio, and Rice has no problem pressing up there. And it will be someone like Martinelli who might just slot in, or Saliba might step onto Partey, so that Partey, onto Bellingham, so that Partey can step onto Camavinga, so Ødegaard can step onto Rudiger. But honestly, because they've played a few passes and been pulled out, Rice is happy to therefore go and press, knowing that others are going to slot in. The constant rotating is unbelievable. We do it on the press or whether we do it in our final third. Mid-block's probably where you see it the least. In the middle of the pitch, they probably are happy to hold a position. But that's also because at that point, there's probably not so many rotations in what Madrid are doing. What did you make of Madrid's defensive setup? Something that I think we did predict was that they might go, I can't remember whether you talked about, but that they would go for almost a 4-4-2 and bring Rodrigo inside a bit because they were worried about Lewis Skelly. Yeah. Bellingham was doubling up on Saka with Alaba. But what did you make of Madrid's kind of shape and almost the lack of pressing? Will they change this for the second leg?
I definitely think they'll change it. For the second leg, they need the majority of the ball. They're at home. They need the goals. And they'll try to engage their difference makers as early as possible, right? Yeah. They're not going to want to get too deep into the game without scoring. You look at the first chance, I think I said this outrageous. I think they had a chance 40 seconds in, the first kind of mistake that was made from Arsenal. And Mbappe goes for, with his pace, he probably could have got closer to David Raya and made it kind of a higher chance conversion shot. Yeah. But he goes for what would have been a bit of a screamer, whipped shot from outside the box, literally within the first minute of the game. Yeah. And I thought that tells me about the mentality that they're going to go for these kind of almost highlight reel finishes pretty early. You know, they're happy.
A lot of shots from distance in there.
That's all they were restricted to, really. And that's what I think that we'll see a lot more of that.
You think there'll be kind of more attempted moments of quality?
100%.
Really?
100%. I don't think that they're going to waste time. They need 4 goals. Yeah. In 90 minutes. They're not going to waste time. You know, if they get to half time and it's 0-0, I think that they'll be not panicking, but then suddenly it's 4 goals in 45 minutes. I don't think they're going to leave it to that. They're going to be, there's the stuff they do. Anyway, we could say they're going to try and pull our players out of position. They're going to rotate their attack, all that kind of stuff. Bellingham and Valverde going wide, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's going to happen. That's how they play normally. But they will try. Like I say, I think Valverde goes into that midfield. Valverde can shoot from distance. I think Tchouaméni comes back into the midfield as well for Modric. Mbappe is going to be there. Vinicius. They will be taking some of the lower XG opportunities and trying to force their way to goal. And even if it is with the pace they've got, running off of a man and going in for second balls and following up, they'll take that just to try to break our structure. I think they feel that
almost create more chaos. So
create a lot more chaos.
It's not as structured a game.
100%. And if they can get that one goal, even if it is a bit of a scrappy goal or anything like that, then suddenly we're game on.
Well, let's make some changes to Real Madrid then. So we know that Camavinga isn't going to start because he's been sent off and he wouldn't have been able to anyway. So I think Tchouaméni comes in.
Yep.
I do think they're going to do something different at right back. Dare I say, Modric might not start, which is crazy because he's kind of their most creative player.
Yep.
But I think there's a chance that they pull him out, bring Valverde into midfield and go for Vázquez, a right back. I also think Alaba might come out for Garcia, just to have kind of more natural attacking fullbacks. What do you make of the changes I've made there? What do you think?
I'm not sure on the Alaba Garcia. I think that Alaba has a lot of experience. I think that as we saw in the kind of heat map there and the passing movements from Arsenal, Saka is the main outball. And so I don't think that they'll look to attack that left-hand side quite as much. Vinicius is their main player in terms of winning one-on-one dribbles, although him and Rodrigo completed 0 against Arsenal. Yeah. But I think that Vinicius is the player more than Rodrigo that doesn't need should win one-on-one battles without the support of a fullback. I think putting an attacking left-back on that's going to go and push up against Timber and Saliba and leaving Saka spare, I think would be a mistake. I think they'll stick with Alaba. But other than that, I agree totally. I don't think we'll see Modric start. I think we'll get Tchouaméni in there to deal with the physical battles with Declan Rice. And then I think we'll have Bellingham and Valverde in the kind of 2 number 8 positions.
They'll have to press and engage us, which is why I think they'll go Valverde, Tchouaméni and Bellingham now.
Yeah, and I agree with Vázquez on right back as well.
Yeah, I mean, hardly a talentless midfield. I mean, oh my word, it's an unbelievable midfield. But you maybe lose that kind of creative craft of Modric touch, and that's more a compliment to Modric than it is a criticism of these two. But we saw Bellingham play that pass in behind to Lewis Skelly for England the other night. He's obviously got that in him. I think Rodrigo and Vinicius will come more inside and actually get away from the individual battles with Timber and Lewis Skelly.
Yeah.
A, because they didn't have much joy, but B, to get them closer to goal. So I think there'll be a little bit more of this quite naturally.
Yeah.
Sort of I know what you mean about Saka, but listen, they're 3-0 down. I don't think they're going to care, and it's at the Bernabeu. What do Arsenal do? Because we can't just be. I like boxing terms.
Yep.
We can't just be like this.
Yep.
Or fight.
Can't be on the ropes. Yeah.
You know what do we do? Because the natural thing is Martinelli and Saka and outlet the other way, but there is going to be such a temptation to do this.
Yeah.
Like there just will be. I could see Arsenal looking like this for a lot of the game.
Yeah.
Or something like this, a little bit more man for man maybe.
Yeah.
But I think Martinelli and Saka will be asked to work incredibly hard. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that it's going to come down to, again, Mourinho dropping into that midfield. You know, Mourinho dropping into the midfield, covering, and that is going to give us an extra body that's going to allow us to actually, if we can win the ball back, how quickly can we transition? How quickly can we get Saka one-on-one and isolate? And especially if we've got Martinelli going against Vasquez, which is a battle that I highlighted before the last game because I thought Vasquez was going to start right back, or Martinelli isolating against Asensio as well. Either one of those battles, I quite like that isolation. If they do bring on Modric later on, I think even more so. You know, if they are lacking, if we get later into the game and they haven't scored or they've only scored one, at some point they may need or feel that they need the creativity of Modric, and then that's going to be a press trigger for Arsenal to go and start stepping out and pushing again. But we need goals in this game. You know, we can't just rely on trying to grind out a clean sheet or taking a 1-0 or different things like that. I think that we need to go and score goals, and I think that we will as well, but I think that we will pick our moments to attack.
Yeah, I'm just reshaping. I think it's actually more likely, if anything, that Martinelli tracks Vasquez, because I don't see Alaba being that sort of overlapping fullback trying to terrorise us too much. I kind of see him more maybe being a part of the build-up, but still kind of holding the width a little bit. So, or
Alaba replaces Asensio, I guess. If you're bringing in Garcia and Vasquez as attacking fullbacks, then I guess Asensio gets dropped, and then you're looking at Rudiger and Alaba as the two centre-backs with all their
Garcia,
experience.
Sorry, with Garcia left back.
Yeah, with Garcia left back, yeah.
Yeah, it could easily be that, actually. Let's build that. So if we put Alaba there, take Asensio out, and add Garcia. Oh my word, there we go. Very possible. Very, very, very possible. They might feel they want to sort of double up on that end. Let me... Okay,
and better from set pieces as well. If you've got David Alaba and Rudiger in there as well, I think Alaba's better defending set pieces than Asensio.
Let me ask you something that's going to upset Arsenal fans.
Okay.
Kivior.
Yep.
Look, firstly, fair play to him.
Yep.
I counted two moments. The first few seconds when he should control the ball. We've all seen the ball drop and you don't quite know how it's going to bounce and you miss it. But I think you've got to put your body behind that and make sure you look after it. Secondly, I thought he played a really undercooked pass to Saliba that put us in trouble. But they all kind of came in the first 20 minutes, and then I thought he got better and better and better as the team got better and better and better. Made a lovely tackle on Mbappe and largely did everything really, really well. So well done to Jakub Kivior, genuinely.
100%. Good game.
We don't have time to be sentimental here, in my opinion. We've got Brentford at home, and then it's a trip to the Bernabeu. Would you be tempted, depending on how things look against Brentford, to play either, and I will illustrate here on the tactical pad, either Ben White, but of course fitness is a concern, but if we're going to do a lot of defending, then him being a left foot is not so much of an issue. Or there are rumours that this man is back in training. And I've seen him at left back for Italy. Class in this position. I actually think it might be his best position. I know. I'm just asking the question before you all get upset. Just asking the question. Kivior deserves the place on that one night on Tuesday. But if you're putting him up against Calafiori and White, based on what they've done over the last few years, it becomes a different conversation. I'd love to know what you think.
Calafiori versus Kivior, based on the last few years of their career, are in the same place. I don't know that I have. Kivior's maybe marked down because of mistakes that he's made since he's been in an Arsenal shirt, but they're both internationals. You know, they're both young fullbacks / centre backs. They're both, you know, Kivior's even captained his national team where Calafiori hasn't. So if we're taking it over the last few years, I mean, Ben White left the England squad. Potentially, he's not even in some people's teams, depending on how they pick it. For me, it's an occasion thing again. Ben White hasn't played a Champions League quarter-final against a team of Real Madrid's quality ever in his career.
Really fair point.
And I don't know if Calafiori, I don't think Calafiori has either, actually, looking at where he's come from. So I doubt that he has. And the experience, you know, I'm not taking Kivior out of that side.
Yeah.
To me, it's like saying if we get a free kick 25 yards out, do we put Ødegaard on it because he's based on free kicks of the past? No. Obviously, Declan Rice just scored the last free kick. We're going to put Declan Rice on this free kick again. You know, we would look real fools to make that change and have that change lead to a goal.
Yeah,
you know, if Kivior makes a mistake that leads to a goal, you can say fair enough, he was outstanding in the first leg. You take him out, you put Calafiori in there, even if Calafiori pulls up injured and Rodrigo runs off him and scores, we look really silly and really sheepish. We 3-0 at home. They need 4 goals against us to get through. They need 3 goals against us to even force extra time in a really defensive unit where Rice and Partey and that you know, for me, I think he deserves to keep his place.
Kivior has played centre-back away at St James's Park in a 2-0 win and looked brilliant. I think that was his first start, actually. Yep. Second start. So I don't doubt that Kivior's capable. I think he's even balled out for Poland playing against France before.
Yep. I wasn't for him starting in the first leg.
Sure.
But if he plays that exact game again, then maybe we end up conceding 1 goal. But if he plays that exact same game again, we get through.
I feel we do this thing as Arsenal Football Club. I think that's Arteta to the
emotional
where
fan base.
We go, wow, that was great. So do it again. And it's like a little bit like Havertz's run for 6 months at the end of the season was kind of enough to make us think we didn't need a striker. No, we still did. We needed to build on top of this. Look, I have my doubts, is what I'm saying. But genuinely, not a nice expression, but gun to my head, I have to pick someone. I'm going Kivior. Why? Because I've seen he can perform against Real Madrid, and I haven't seen that from White, and I don't know how fit Calafiori is or whatever. But I can't pretend that if we weren't talking in the context of Real Madrid, it was just pre-season, we're in the summer, and you said to me, rank our defenders at the club. Kivior, it sits quite considerably below Calafiori and White for me.
100%. But, you know, if Havertz is 60, 70% fit, next week, we'll probably still go Marino. He's done the job, he's growing into the job, etc., etc. We've seen Calafiori against Man City, against Savinho, get absolutely smoked in a one-on-one battle.
So Calafiori is maybe not a good example.
Yeah.
I only put him in there because he's left-footed and balled out a centre-back for Italy.
That's the thing.
But with White, I think it's different because with Marino, Havertz isn't the equivalent of White for me.
Yeah.
Havertz is a good player who's done some good moments. White has been one of the best right backs in the world for the last 3 years.
But we're not even talking about putting White right back. If you said to me,
also true.
If you said to me, do we shift Saliba over, put Timber centre back, right-sided centre back, and put Ben White right back? That's maybe more compelling.
Yeah.
But Kivior, we're going to sit deeper. We're probably our average attacking position is going to be deeper. It's going to be a lot about how we transition. We need a left-footed centre back in order to hit that ball over the top. Bless me, apologies. But in order to hit that ball over the top, especially if Martinelli's going to be running against Vasquez, that's a battle that we think that actually that's a very, very winnable battle. He looked really good against Valverde, to be fair, and Valverde's probably a better physical specimen than Vasquez is. But we need that. Yeah. You know, it may be that we get the ball with Miles Lewis-Skelly and Kivior at the left centre back position, and we need a long ball switch over to Saka because there's space in behind Rudiger. We need a left footer on that side. So, you know, the argument of left centre back, I'm not seeing Ben White over Kivior of left centre back for this particular game. I'm not seeing it. If we're moving Kivior out and changing the whole back four, then maybe there's more of a compelling argument, but not for that space there specifically.
Totally hear you. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. We've given our thoughts on maybe potential changes, defensive shape, and what Real Madrid might do differently. That's the key thing because, you know, we were the protagonists in the first game, but all eyes are on what Madrid do and how we answer it. Nick, dare I ask a score prediction? Do you think we're going through?
I think we win 2-1.
Wow.
I think we win 2-1.
I think we lose 2-1.
I could see either.
Yeah. I think we'll go through. We're 3-0 up. I should be way more confident.
Yeah.
But that's kind of true of the history of both these teams. Kind of history has to go against Real Madrid and their incredible turnarounds, and Arsenal and their kind of soft underbelly stuff that is often thrown at us. But let's see, because we were anything but that on Tuesday 100%. Night. Let's build on it for Wednesday. And of course, when we're playing Wednesday, we'll actually know whether it's PSG or Villa in the semi-final. I think Villa have a chance of turning that around. But obviously PSG look the favourite, so let's see. Nick, a big thank you to you. Everyone, a big thanks for tuning in. Send your love for Graham as well in the comment section below. He'll be back as soon as possible, and hope you've enjoyed this little tactical preview looking ahead to the Bernabeu and the big game there. Can Arsenal book their place in the semi-finals? We've done a lot of the work, but another 90 minutes to play. Get it done, Arsenal, please. We'll catch you very soon.